Hey, good morning. Shannon B. Douglas. This is while we were asleep. I am going for a walk early. Kelowna BC. I've been here for 3 days. Arrived on, I guess it's my third day. I arrived on Wednesday, visiting with some friends here. And yesterday, having a roundtable conversation with 2 of the 6 BC School Board Trustees who have pushed back against SOGI I II III. Barry Neufeld and Leanne Titi. Joined us was Aaron Kimberly of Gender Dysphoria Alliance. Gender Dysphoria Alliance is an organization created by trans people who feel that the medical system and the current policies of affirmation only and informed consent are dangerous to children, and we should have a science-based approach, an evidence-based approach to gender treatment instead of an ideological one. So Aaron Kimberly of GD Alliance has been doing a lot of work internationally, working with some leading minds. He's on the board of GenSpect. He's involved with Canadian Gender Report, does the podcast for GD Alliance with Aaron Terrell and guests on a regular basis. And it was extremely interesting to get some of the history on the pushback on SOGI I II III. That's the sexual orientation and gender identity curriculum created by a private group and imposed on all 60 school districts in British Columbia through sort of a bait and switch. It was presented at a high level, fluffy, feel good. This is all about the kids. And no one questioned it except a couple of people. One of those people was Leanne Titi, who had a constituent pull her aside and say, "You need to look at this," and poked her again and said, "You need to look at this." And when Leanne started looking at it, she realized what a pernicious doctrine it was that was teaching and is teaching children in British Columbia that there's no such thing as biological sex, that gender is a social construct, and that any questioning of this ideology is considered hate. This is a way to silence conversation. And this brings me to Barry Neufeld. Barry spent his career as a parole officer, working in, among other places, and roles, victim services. So he mediated in families where there was abuse and sexual violence, and with various types of offenders, making sentencing recommendations, those kinds of things. He even worked with a polygamous group in southern British Columbia, which I believe is a whole story unto its own. And I'm going to talk to Barry again. He's going to be in Ottawa because he has a free speech case going before the Supreme Court of Canada because of his stand on SOGI I II III in British Columbia. He's going to the Supreme Court of Canada because of the stand he took on SOGI I II III. Now, Barry comes from a faith-based Christian tradition and has certain views that I would call conservative. And that's quite okay. In the environment that we're in, these politics are making very strange bedfellows, including, for me, working with radical feminists who have beliefs about men that I don't agree with, and which I think are challenging to the dignity of men and boys. But I will put aside my disagreement, and they will too, because we're all working to common cause. So the common cause is protecting children, and to get this pernicious ideology and these dangerous practices out of our schools and our medical systems. We want to work on evidence-based instead of ideology. So at one point in Barry's criticism of SOGI I II III, publicly and being quoted in the media, the head of the BC Teachers Union, which is, I think he said 50,000 strong members, not a small organization, said that Barry was unfit to be in the presence of children in the media. Now, that's not the exact quote, but that's the sentiment. I might be a word or two off. But the read was, and there were actually steps taken to prevent him being unsupervised with kids, or not allowed to be in spaces where there were kids, thanks to this union boss. And this was based on his disagreement with SOGI. So Barry sued the head of the BC Teachers Union for defamation. And I would have too, because insinuations of being unfit to be close to children have all kinds of suggestions that Barry is a predator, and those are false. So Barry took this to court, and the BC Teachers Union, 50,000 strong with an enormous budget, and his legal team took the stand that they were going to protect themselves under the anti-SLAPP rules. Now, SLAPP stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. And it is a set of laws and rules that have come in the States and various provinces in Canada over the last number of years to protect individuals against being sued into silence by large organizations, where the individuals don't have the financial capacity to defend themselves, and the large organization can use their endless legal budgets to attack and punish individuals for criticizing a large organization. So the judge that heard the trial ruled against Barry Neufeld. He ruled in favor of the union under the anti-SLAPP legislation, suggesting that Barry was using a strategic lawsuit against public participation, which turns that concept of anti-SLAPP legislation upside down and protects the giant organization and its head instead of the individual. So what Barry did was he appealed. Now, the judge who heard the case in the first place was appointed by Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, and this was the very first case that he heard in a courtroom. He'd never had any rulings set down before, and had never had any expertise in this anti-SLAPP legislation. So this went before a review panel of 3 judges who overturned the original judge's findings that supported the head of the union. Now, because there's financial consequences here, and because the head of the union has kind of an unlimited budget, the head of the union appealed it to the Supreme Court of Canada. And so this fall, Barry's coming to Ottawa because his case will be heard before the Supreme Court, and we will test the anti-SLAPP legislation and the kinds of bullying tactics used by the BC Teachers Union and its former head. I'll be talking with Barry when he comes to Ottawa, and I'll do a formal interview. But if you're tracking this at all, this is the kind of thing that happens to people who are speaking out against these ideological curriculums that are being rammed into our school systems and teaching our children based on political and ideological bias about the state and nature of the world. My name is Shannon B. Douglas. This is While We Were Asleep.